wanted to make a video about folk filmmaking awards. A lot of people have been asking me, like, is there going to be an award ceremony for folk filmmaking? And I've kind of railed against award ceremonies in the traditional sense and like the Oscars and stuff with my film Pure Cinema. But I thought it would be fun to do a very low stakes award ceremony. And what do I mean by that? This is basically going to be my own subjective opinion so that there's no confusion. You know that this is just my personal opinion, and it would be really greatly encouraged if you could make your own video about your favorite folk films, or if you could make a video response or a comment below just saying like, hey, these are the films I enjoyed the most, maybe not even in an order per se, but just films that you really enjoyed. So the first category is best cinematography. Cinematography is crucial to making a great film, and there's been so many good cinematic moments that have come from folk films this year. Some of my favorites, and in the top 5, are Hell, which was a beautiful, beautiful film that has a very snowy cinematography scene, and I'll put a little clip up here. It was really, really beautiful. And then you have Joel Haver's newest film. It really captured the dreamy LA vibe with this kind of square ratio that Joel has become kind of known for. We have Perfect, which is by Elijah Butler. Probably one of the most unique looking films of the year. I really enjoy the almost hard candy style 2005, 2006 sort of grungy cinematography with this film. Then we have C'est La Vie, which is just beautiful black and white. I think they use the black magic, and just the cinematography and the way it looks, the blacks and the detail in the shots just look fantastic in every scene that I saw. And the final one is Black Dog by the Don't Tell Show. Black Dog just in general had some of the best cinematography of the year. It had a lot of really, really clean, crisp shots, and I think it just used the naturalistic documentary feel to its advantage. So there's no like envelope gonna be opened, but I am kind of making these selections based off the top of my head of what I enjoyed the most. And for me, the best cinematography of the year was C'est La Vie. The black and white cinematography was fantastic. I really liked just the look of the film in general, and I think that a lot of folk films could take a lot from watching that movie. So if you could check it out on YouTube, it is free. You can check it out. It has great, fantastic cinematography, and I think it's one of the more underappreciated films in the folk filmmaking movement. Editing is so crucial. It's the way you put together a story. So many of these films are made in an improv style, and editing is the script writing of the film. So I would love to attribute some of the best editing of the year, 5 films that were really, really fantastic. The first would be A Simple Smash and Bash Job Gone Wrong by Joel Haver. This is a crazy cacophony of editing. If you saw the live stream in which Joel shot it, you will tell that this film was complete chaos when they filmed it, but the movie is actually surprisingly very coherent and makes a lot of sense and has its own internal, almost dream-like logic. And that's why it's one of the best films of the year for editing.
Come into my ring, you're fucking wasting my time here.
All right, coach, help me get out of it then.
Keep it up, left, right, uppercut. Roundhouse, baby.
Then we have Mitchell Chibber's The Last Day of Childhood, which features some very, very unique and stylized editing for what was considered to be sort of a mixture of a narrative and documentary feel. And it's one of the most memorable edited films of the year, and that's why it's one of my top 5 favorite edited films of the year. My third film of the year for best editing is, again, C'est La Vie. C'est La Vie was one of the more interestingly edited films. It's done in a very professional, standard Hollywood sort of way. I think that there's very few films that are edited in this way in folk filmmaking. I think a lot of the films try to subvert the sort of traditional Hollywood sort of way of doing things, but C'est La Vie just kind of plays more into that, and it's edited just very cleanly and professionally, and that's why it's one of the best films for editing this year. And our final two selections, first is Hell. Hell is an amazing film by Lance Todd. It features a very, very strange editing choice throughout the film, specifically with forwards and reverse cinematography that's been manipulated in editing. And it's one of the more memorable films that I saw this year, and I think the editing in particular is what makes this film so strong and compelling. And our final selection for Best Editing is the Don't Tell Show's Black Dog. This is a fantastic film for editing. I think in general, it's one of the more tense and unique films of the year, and I think that the off-pace rhythm with the narrative mixture of documentary and narrative together made it very compelling, especially through the editing choices. What was left in the cut, what was not left in the cut, I think really informs the characters, and it's one of my favorite edited films of the year, and that's why I put it in my top 5.
I find it funny that they call it a black dog, because mine were triggered by one. Haha.
Do you have to? Don't do the laugh. Don't do the laugh.
Just cut it out.
And the award for Best Editing for a folk film this year goes to Joel Haver for A Simple Smash and Bash Job Gone Wrong. I don't think any of these other films, while very, very, very strong editing, can compare to the monumental task of having to probably comb through hours upon hours of just random funny dialogue done through a computer, through a live stream, putting it together and making it coherent. I think that this is probably the most impressive edited film because it is a film, and I think that it informed every other choice. I think the cinematography, the story, and everything was done specifically so that they can make it as funny as possible through editing. And it's one of my favorite films of the year, and it's a fantastically edited film. And now on to one of the biggest categories of the year, Best Actor. Best Actor is a role that obviously is extremely important. There's many leading men in a lot of folk films, and there was a lot of choices for this. Specifically, this was probably one of the most hard categories to boil down my favorite selections. But I do have 5, and 5 actors I will pick for Best Folk Filmmaking Actor. So here we go. And the nominees are for Best Actor, starting with Jordan Ross in The Wild Boys Hunt for Sasquatch. Jordan did a fantastic part in this movie. It was very, very hilarious, and I think he probably had the funniest role of any folk film of the entire year.
You know, if I was a child, this would be called child abuse. I mean, it's not too late. We can just go to the ranger, we can tell him we need our car jumped, we pack it up, and we go.
The second nominee for Best Actor is Dax Flame. This was a fantastic and anxiety-inducing performance by Dax Flame. As a character actor, it seemed like he really, really felt anxious throughout the film. He almost felt like a method-type performance. It was very unique and one of the more strong performances that I saw from this year, especially in the dramatic side of Best Actor. I was very impressed with what Dax Flame could do. I had seen him in some other bigger movies before, but never really had saw him at this kind of depth of level of drama. So that's why he's nominated for Best Actor.
Put my hands in some of the handprints, like you know, like some of the like Jim Carrey, Tim Burton, just like some people I like. And I was just like seeing the different sizes and like kind of just like, I don't know, like kind of just like closing my eyes and sort of like seeing like.
The third nominee is Elijah Butler for Perfect. This is by far the most method performance of the year. Elijah Wan really, really gets into this performance, so much so that it seems that his physical performance was just as much as his emotional and dialogue, even going so far as to, I believe, changing his hair color and maybe even changing other parts of his physical presence throughout the film with how he carries his body and how he laughs and how he talks. It's a very, very full-bodied performance, and it's one of the most unique ones that I've seen this entire year. And I think that it's probably one of the most memorable folk film performances of all time.
Let's make a deal, huh? You help me build these tools and I'll pay off all your debt.
Our next nominee is Nicholas Adamson in Black Dog. This is a fantastic and unique performance. I think that Nicholas really gets to the core of a very eccentric and weird character, and I think that very few people could play this role the way that he played this role, and it was definitely one of the performances that made me, as a folk filmmaker, get inspired to make more films and to find unique people in those films, because when you see stories like this being told with these type of actors, you can really see just the beauty that you can do on a low budget scale with a really, really fantastic actor, and that's why he's nominated for Best Actor in a Folk Film.
I know some things about you, you know.
What do you know about me?
I know that you need me more than I need you.
That's not really true though, is it, to be fair?
Well, I'm going on an adventure now.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
And my final performance goes to Armin Dogrulio for C'est la vie, which is a very, very fun and kind of campy performance. But what's great about it is that I think the character is very, very enjoyable to watch. It's more of a traditional, like I said, kind of Hollywood fare, where he's playing this performance more how you would expect a Hollywood actor would play a performance. A lot of the other films in this category were done in the more method style or full comedy. This is more of a traditional sort of performance from a dramatic role, and what I really enjoyed about it was just how he kind of had this cool suaveness about him, and that was really conveyed through his acting and his dialogue and the way he held himself. So those are my top 5 performances of the year.
Now you see, if you double down and purchase the deluxe edition, not only are you going to get a 3rd pack free with your initial purchase of 2, you're going to get a 10-pack restock. And that'll last you at least 2 months, whereas the basic version will only last 1.
And the award goes to, drumroll please, Elijah Butler for Perfect. This is the best performance of folk filmmaking this year. It might be one of the best performances of folk filmmaking in general. I think it's criminally underrated that this film has less than 1,000 views, and I think it's criminally underrated that this performance is not being noticed as much. So Best Actor to Elijah, and let's move on to the next category. And the next category is the Best Actress category, which is a crucial category because there's been so many fantastic female-led performances in major folk films. And the first one is Hannah Ray in C'est la vie. Hannah Ray has a very unique way of performing. She, again, plays in this more classical Hollywood style, almost feels like an actress from like the 1950s or the 1960s that's just been drug up from the past. And I think this performance has a lot of electricity in it. You can really feel, like I said, with Armin's performance, there's this kind of cool suaveness that you're getting from these performances. And I think that it's a testament to the director as well as a testament to the actress that how good this performance really is. And it's one of the standouts that I saw this year.
What do you do? How old are you? Do you have a job? Did you go to school? Where are you from? You know, small talk.
The second performance from a lead actress in a main role is Jamie Saunders in Ramekin 2. This is a very fun and zany role that features a lot of different emotions: horror, comedy, dread. You're feeling a lot of things with her character, and I don't think any other actress could really play this role the way that it was intended, other than Jamie. I think Jamie nails this role and nails the vibe and the tone of what Ramekin needs. So this is one of the best performances I've seen this year, and I cannot wait to see what she does in future Ramekin films.
Look, let's get back to the script. I really want you both to get these parts. It would be awesome if we could do this together.
Our next nominee for Best Actress is Madison Rotolo in Perfect. Acting against Elijah Butler's performance was definitely probably a difficult task because he really, really brought it, but Madison brought it as well. She made a fantastic, fantastic character out of something that was a lot more subtle and a lot more underneath the performance that Elijah's doing. He's doing a very method and big performance, and she's asked to do a lot of subtle things. But those subtle things are nailed with subtle precision, and I think she's one of the best performances of the year, and that's why I nominated her.
It works perfectly. I made it with your tools, which admittedly didn't give me much to work with.
Don't use that tone.
The next performance is Kenzie Clem in They're Coming, another Elijah Wan film. Kenzie did a fantastic job. What's unique about this performance is that a lot of the screen time that this performance is done on is a mixture of her being on screen and her being off screen filming. But just through the dialogue and the way that she was acting throughout the film, I thought this was a very memorable performance and one that I really enjoyed. I think sometimes we forget that acting is using your voice, using your ability to talk. And a lot of what she was saying and how she was saying it was very, very convincing. So I thought this was a fantastic performance, a unique performance because she wasn't always on screen, so she had to use her vocals in order to convey this performance just as much as she did when she was on screen.
Understand me. I mean, they kind of thought I was a nerd. They tried to put me into sports, but I just wasn't interested. I was interested in the stars and the sky. And
the final performance of the year was Nita Ghassemi in Not Now. This is a juggernaut of a performance. When I think of like low budget indie films and I think of actresses in a lead role, this is one of the big performances that I think a lot of people are going to think about. It's definitely one of the most emotional and out there performances. You're really seeing her put herself in this role and giving every 110% of it. It's probably one of the most mature performances I've seen from anyone in folk filmmaking, and I cannot wait to see maybe her in another film. I think that would be fantastic, and I think the performance was really, really next level.
Does she even know that she's your girlfriend?
Kind of.
Have you two even had the talk?
Kind of.
And what'd she say?
And the winner for Best Actress goes to Nita Ghassemi. This was just a performance that blew me away. I can't really say anything more than this is just a performance that I think every director wishes they had in their film. It's emotional, it's compelling, it's well written, it's funny, and that's all done by the script as well as her translating that script with how she's talking, how she's acting, how she's interacting with all the other characters. And she brought so much to this role, and that's why she deserves the Best Actress category. For Best Original Music, I decided to just go with one person because I really just felt like there was one person that stood above literally everyone when it came to music this year. And the one performance I wanted to nominate was Jordan Ross in Video Carnage specifically. Jordan absolutely killed the score. The score is fantastic, and it's probably one of the few scores in folk filmmaking that like I can imagine myself like listening to on my off time. I can hear the theme in my head just thinking about it, and it's clearly one of the best musical scores of the year in folk filmmaking, and it's the one that stood out to me the most, and that's why I just decided to nominate that one because I thought that that was the best musical score for the entire year. Now we've reached the Best Director and Best Picture category. I've decided to announce these simultaneously, so I'm going to just announce all 10 films in both categories, and then I will go through and specifically name the one that is my favorite of the year. The first nominee is Chandler Bali in One Left. He did a fantastic job with a very apocalyptic and surreal directed film. I believe this is his first feature film, and it was one of the most unique films. It almost felt like kind of like a Lynchian nightmare mixed with like an apocalyptic sort of dread type movie. Almost the ending of the movie kind of reminded me of like Twin Peaks-esque, and that's why I really enjoy this film, and that's why I think he's one of the best directors and deserves the Best Picture nomination. Our second nominee is Lance Todd in Hell. He did a very unique direction for this movie. I think that this movie couldn't have been directed by anyone but Lance. I think Lance made this film what it is, and specifically the sort of mixture of sci-fi with surrealism I thought was very unique, and I think that there's just no other way to convey it than to just watch the movie. The movie really is a pure vision of his own, and it has a very special and important meaning to me after watching it.
Aren't you even a little curious as to what it's like? A second couldn't hurt.
And the third nomination for Best Folk Film and Best Folk Film Director is Jordan Ross in Video Carnage. I went back and forth between Video Carnage and Wild Boys and Video Carnage and Wild Boys, and I enjoyed both films basically equally, but I had to pick one for the Doom Productions team, and I felt that Video Carnage was the film that kind of put Doom Productions on the map in 2021. I thought it was the film that most defined what I enjoyed about their films this year, and that's why I put Video Carnage and Jordan as the director. I think that this was a fantastic film and one of my favorites of the year, and I think it's one of the most important folk films in 2021, and that's why I nominated it. The fourth nomination is Joel Haver's. After a simple smash and bash job gone wrong, I was excited to see what Joel was going to do next, and following Pretend That You Love Me was definitely a monumental task, as that is a huge film for the folk filmmaking movement. It is one of the rare times where a follow-up to a film does what that previous film did, but almost even better in a certain way. I think that Joel really elevated his style and his craft in this film. In the number 5 spot, we have Voidman by Mohead. I don't know how to say your last name, and I don't want to butcher it. If you can phonetically spell it in the comments, that will help me. I don't want to screw it up, but this is a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed a lot about this. It's a 3-hour maximalist, big budget film done on a low budget scale, and it's really fantastic what Mohead was able to do with this film. I was so excited by just the potential of where he was going with this 3-hour epic. It's definitely the most grand folk film I've ever seen, and I think that you should check it out just based on that alone. I think that the grandness and the scale of the film is what makes it special. The next film is C'est la Vie, which is a film by Alexander Scott Rogers. It is a very, very unique black and white sort of comedy film based around the end and the destruction of the world. It's a premise that I think has been done a lot by a lot of filmmakers, but what Alexander Scott Rogers brings to this is a very sort of classic 1950s aesthetic mixed with kind of like a cool jazzy feel from like the 60s, as well as sort of a modern editing flair. It's very unique, and it's probably one of the most stylish films in the folk filmmaking movement, and I think there's a lot of risks taken in the direction, especially with some certain effects and stuff, and I think that this is a film that is very confidently directed and made. Our next film is by Nicholas Adamson, which is Black Dog. This is a really, really amazing mixture of hybrid of documentary and narrative. It's very tense. It has this almost weird cadence to it that I don't think any other folk film has really achieved other than this. Black Dog is definitely one of the best photography I've ever seen in a film in folk filmmaking this year. Some of the best editing in almost every major category. Black Dog was nominated, and the reason is because it's a fantastic film. There's just no other way to say it. This is one of the best films of the year. It's one of the few films that where it ended, I really felt like this emotional weight hit me at the very end of the movie. It's definitely one of my favorite films this year, and I'm so excited to nominate it on this list.
Shit happens, life goes on, that's the end.
The next film we have is Matt Berry's Endless August. This is the Matt Berry project that I enjoyed the most out of his films. I think Endless August is a very unique and raw film. It's very, very minimalist in how it's edited. It's very minimalist in how it's acted. It's very minimalist in general, but I think that's what's part of the beauty. And I think Endless August is one of the few films that I don't see a lot of love from the folk filmmaking community. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this movie, but it's fantastic. It's very beautiful. I think the performances are very, very subtle, but in a way that is very engaging. And I remember watching it during the folk filmmaking meetup while everyone was going to get some like gas and food and snacks. And it was just a very quaint and enjoyable film. And That's why I put it in my top 10 best directed and best picture films of the year. Our next film we have is Not Now. Not Now is Ethan Stevens' second feature film. It's definitely his big, grand statement. It's a very deep and emotional work, and it's something that's clearly very personal to Ethan. I think that the film is just very, very special, and it's one of those films that I think you can put on, and at a certain time in your life, or even recalling that time in your life, you can feel connected to that, where those teenage emotions are feeling so very palpable and beyond your control almost. And I think that Ethan Stevens really, really captivates and controls an audience by showing him this very palpable romance that's going on, and that's why I selected him for Best Film and Best Director.
Yes! That's what I do for love!
And the final selection is Perfect by Elijah Butler. This is just one of the best films of the year. Exactly the same when I said Black Dog. It was nominated for almost all the major categories. It's a film that I think really does everything resoundingly well. It's really good in the acting department, it's really good in the cinematography and the story, and I think Elijah and his team really, really nailed this film. And I think that there's very few films in the folk filmmaking space right now that feel this unique and original, and that's why I wanted to nominate this film for Best Feature Film and Best Director.
All right. Pass the test.
There's a lot of good films this year, and I was contemplating, do I pick a film? Do I pick 2 films? Do I pick 3 films? I think I'm gonna pick a couple films as my favorite films of the year. I think just picking one would just be too simple for me to do it. I think I would like to just do a couple. So the films I'm gonna choose, I think I'm gonna go with 3 selections. There's 3 films that really I felt like pushed the ground forward in folk filmmaking this year. The first one is Joel Haver. I think Joel Haver is clearly the breakout success of like the independent YouTube filmmaking scene, and I think this film is just a statement to like why he's so successful. Because the films have clear, palpable emotions. They're concise and interesting to watch, and he just has a very unique brand of comedy mixed with drama that I think very few filmmakers in the folk filmmaking space have. The second film I decided to select was Elijah Wan's Perfect. This was the film that I think was like the runaway success film that I did not see coming in a million miles. A lot of Elijah's work, other than They're Coming as well, it didn't really work for me, but I think that this film, Perfect, just hit that level of quality with the acting, the performances, the writing. I just felt like this was a very strong, just definitive statement of like what kind of films can be made and released on YouTube, and I want to support that, and I want to show more people that these type of films exist on YouTube. And the final selection for the year, C'est La Vie, Alexander Scott Rogers. This was a film that I think crept up on me. I was not expecting this to be like really good because I just didn't know the director. I didn't know the film. I just clicked on it and I was like, holy crap, this is really well filmed. This is really like good actors, good direction, good team working on this. The whole project is fantastic. And it's probably the most original and unique work that's in the folk filmmaking space, because it just doesn't feel like anything else that's like folk filmmaking right now. You have a lot of films that are improv and made up kind of like narratives on the spot. This feels very controlled and scripted and very like referential to like the 1950s and 60s. And I really, really enjoyed this film, and I really am excited that this film exists on YouTube, especially for free. So these are the 3 selections I made. These are the 3 films that were like the most folk film that I enjoyed this year. All the selections were great. I watched like 40 folk films this year. I didn't watch every single one, but I tried to nominate as many of the films that I saw. Everyone who made films this year, thank you so much for making feature films. This is just so amazing. This is beautiful to see you guys making feature films, putting them out on YouTube, getting them out there, building a community. Folk filmmaking isn't some doctrine. It's not some thing that you have to agree to do. This is just a fun place where people encourage each other to make films. And that's what I wanted this to be. This isn't a competition. This isn't, oh, you won and you lost. Everyone can have a favorite film in folk filmmaking. Everyone can have a film that represents what they want to do in folk filmmaking. And that's what's special about it. So don't make this a competition. This isn't a competition. This is a subjective opinion by one guy who enjoys watching these films. And I wanted to bring more light to some of the smaller projects this year. So this is Dan Lotz signing out for 2021. I'll see you in 2022. Have a great year. You guys made this a fantastic year on YouTube.